Welcome to Tech Notice. In this video, we're going to be building the best bang for buck Threadripper system. Mainly, I want to focus this video for people who've maybe never built a PC and they want to build themselves a video editing or create a PC that has a lot of cores, but then have the best bang for buck. So in this video, we're not going to go into too much detail why we're building this exact configuration and why we're using these parts. We're just going to be building this step by step. So if you've never done it, if you follow this video, you're going to be building this no problem. Every single part that you're going to see in this video will be linked in the description below. So if you purchase from these links, you can get exactly the same parts as I have. So you don't have to worry about whether these parts are compatible with each other or not. So you can do it exactly yourself. So just remember, the links for these are in the description below. Also want to mention that if you want to check out the chapters, there's going to be different parts of different PC parts. So if you jump through a certain part, you can jump in that. If you come back to the video, it's easier for you to find. So if you're wondering what are some of the tools that you also need for this build, then I'll leave those in the description as well. But you basically need a screwdriver and that is it. This is part one of the video series as well. So if you want to check out like why we're choosing exactly these parts and how good this is, hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified when the next video is going to come out. You know, hit that bell icon because that will come useful as well. So without no further ado, let's jump straight into the build.
If you're looking for a cheap Windows 10 OEM license, then look no further. Bobkeys.com is a website where you can purchase all sorts of keys and licenses for very affordable prices. With a Tech Notice discount, you'll be able to get the Windows 10 Pro license 25% off. To purchase the license, click on the link in the description or search for Windows 10 license on Bobkeys.com. Then add the product to the cart and press proceed checkout. Remember to add the 25% discount code and complete the order. Once you have the license key, click here, paste in the license and you're all done. Check out bobkeys.com in the description below.
As always with my builds, I would like to start with the power supply because that way you can ground yourself. So we are using the Corsair 1000 watt power supply because the processor we're using is pretty power hungry. Let's take this out. From this box, you're gonna need a few things. I already have one of those kettle cables like plugged in over there, but if you don't, use one of those because you're gonna need that. We're gonna need this main power supply unit over here. That's all you need. Leave the rest things in the box because we're gonna get back to them later. You don't need them for now. So what you want to do is you're gonna get that power cable or kettle cable, whatever you want to call this, and you're just gonna plug it in the back of the power supply over there. Switch it on. So now essentially what happens is if you touch this power supply, you're going to be earthed. So if you by some reason, you know, gathered some static electricity in your body, you know, by the way, where you're standing on the floor or somehow rubbing some different materials, you can get static electricity, which can damage some of the PC components, but it's not very likely or it's not easily done. Just in case, just another little extra protection, you can do that. If you want to, you can get like a wrist strap as well. I'll leave that in the description below if you want to, but it's not really necessary. Ain't nobody got time for that. Next off, we're gonna be taking out our motherboard as well as the RAM you have, CPU, your SSDs, M.2 drives, RAM and CPU in here. So we're gonna put the RAM, CPU and the SSDs on the side. Open this motherboard box. Inside, we're gonna need this motherboard. Take it out. Gently put it on the side. Then underneath we're going to need a few more things. There's like the instruction manuals. It's definitely helpful. There's SATA cables and we're going to need those as well because we're going to be installing a hard drive later as well for hard archive. There's some of the RGB cables, we don't need that. RGB cables, we don't need that. We don't need that. We need the IO shield, that's definitely what we need as well. So put that on the side, we're gonna be needing that. Inside there's a few more things. This one over here is a 10 gigabit Ethernet network interface card, or NIC. We're gonna put that in as well. So I'll put that on the side because we don't need it just yet. And then on the other side over here, we have the M.2 expansion card. We don't have that many SSDs, so we don't need that. So we'll keep that inside there. What you do need though is this little pouch of M.2 screws, because our SSDs will be screwed in with these little screws. So make sure you don't lose them. They're very, very important. If you are running a lot of SATA cables, you can use these stickers and, you know, label them so you know which like hard drive is which, a little bit organization. MSI sticker, don't need that. When taking the motherboard out from the box, what I always like to do is use like your hand and take hold of this back bracket with your fingers inside. So you're not touching like all these little pins and maybe getting some of the finger grease, or, you know, sometimes you have little oils or things in your hands that conduct electricity. So you don't want that. So you're going to put your fingers and you touch like the back bracket or the back plate of the CPU. So you're going to use that, and then on the other side, you use it like that. So it's like a safe to kind of remove. So, and then we're going to just put it on top of the box, just like that. The box is kind of like a neutral ground. So now let's do the most important thing first, which is the CPU installation. Now with this CPU, it's a little bit different than the Ryzen processors because it's an LGA socket, which means that the pins are on the motherboard, not on the CPU. And you're going to see that in a moment, which makes the process installation a little bit more tricky and a few steps that can go wrong. So we have to be very, very careful with this one. It's easy if you follow the steps, but just have to be very, very careful with this one. So we open this over here, and inside this box you have AMD instructions, things like that, this CPU. But inside the box over here, underneath this box, there's a few more very important things. Well, the main thing is this screw driver over here, because it has a special Torx in there. So all of these screws inside the motherboard have to be like this certain tightness. We don't need this bracket underneath, because that's if you wanted to install like an AIO or get like an AIO installed over there. Not in our case, because we're not using an AIO. By the way, if you have one of those iFixit kit, it's so useful because the underneath like little panel or the top cover, you can use this to store your screws, so you know they're not going to get lost because they're underneath there. You take a little bit of the knife and then you slice this, boom, over here. Let me see if there's one on the other side as well. Nope. And then now, whoa, you squeeze these a little bit and then pull this back out. And then here we have our processor. This is absolutely massive processor compared to like some of the other desktop or mainstream processors. Pull this lever this way, and then now you can start to take the processor out. You don't need this black bit. This over here is the processor now. If you can, don't touch the IHS, which is this like the top part of the processor, because we don't want any of our grease in there. Don't touch any of these contacts over here, but it is safe to lay this down on the table like that, because there's little plastic things that take it off the ground. I'll put it on this box for now. So let's get on with this CPU installation now. So as you can see, there's 3 screws in here that we need to do. There's one on the top over here. This is the top of the motherboard. 1 over here, 2 over here, and 3 over here. They're all labeled. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be opening it by going 3, 2, 1. Okay. So you put this stroke screw in there. You open number 3, number 2, and then number 1. I'll just open the number 1 a little bit, but you want to do open the number 3 completely, open number 2 completely, and open number 3. Once you get to number 1, or like 3, 2, 1, it's gonna want to pop out, so that's good. It's gonna pop out, don't worry.
I don't know that.
Alexa, shut your mouth.
Hermes, shut your mouth.
So now this is out. So this is like the first cover, right? And then you're gonna be like squeezing these in a little bit. So basically these, can you see these blue tabs or little pulley things, little things over here? What you want to do is you just like kind of squeeze them a little bit into the middle, push them in, and then it just comes up like that. There's a little bit of force you need to do. So now let's do this like in the right order of things, or how I would do it. So first, as you can see, this plastic cover over here slides out from this socket. So you can just take this off. And then now take your CPU, and then we're going to be sliding this inside there as well. Now make sure that your CPU is going into those little rails on the side, and then it goes all the way down, boom. We can see that your CPU goes all the way to the bottom, and that's it. Make sure that it goes into those black rails on this side. So these black rails on the side, that your CPU slides into those. So if I pull this up, can you see how the sides of the CPU are going into those rails? You push it on the bottom, keep this up. And then now make sure your CPU doesn't fall, boom, in there. There's a little like spring that keeps it up, but make sure it doesn't pull in there. And then now in here, this is the socket, okay? So you take hold of the black bit over here, or on the sides. And then you pull, squeeze in a little bit and then pull up. Now, very, very important, make sure nothing drops in here because there's over 1000 pins in this socket and they need to be lined up with this processor perfectly. So now once the socket is open, what you want to do is make sure that your CPU is all the way like in the rails on the very bottom. All you do is push it down, boom, and then now your CPU is kind of held in place over there. Once it's held in place, we want to close this bracket over here. As you saw, I never touched the IHS of the CPU here, which is very, very good. So now close it by 1, 2, 3. It's very important that you keep it with the same order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the number 1 going a little bit, and then I'll go to number 2, get that going a little bit, number 3, get that going a little bit, and then go to back to number 1 and then close number 1 completely. So we're going to close number 1. You keep screwing until you hear this. Did you hear that? So now it's got the right tension because it can't go any further. Now we go to number 2, click, number 3, click. Did you hear that? So if you go back to number 1, it just clicks, number 2, clicks, number 3, clicks. So now you've got the perfect tension on the CPU. Everything is lined up perfectly and your CPU is in. And now you don't have to worry about that your socket's going to get damaged because like all those pins are protected underneath the CPU. Just a little teaching or note on the CPU. Each one of those pins inside the socket over there do like different things, whether it's like an M.2 or PCIe slot or RAM slot or something, they're all connected to the CPU. So if any one of those pins is not connected to the CPU perfectly and doesn't get connection, that means that one of the RAM sticks, for example, might not work, or one of the PCA slots might not work. So it's very important that the CPU installation is done properly in this point. It's much more like difficult than like a normal Ryzen socket that has the pins on the CPU and you can't really go wrong. But in this, that's what we have to do. So now the CPU installed, let's move on to RAM. So you don't need that tool anymore, but keep it handy just in case you want to upgrade your CPU. You should get it with a new CPU as well, but it's a helpful tool to keep handy. If you want to know which RAM we are using, then check out the description below. There's 8 slots over here, and this CPU is 4-channel like memory, quad-channel memory, which means that if you want to get the best performance, you want to occupy every single channel. And then every other one of those is the same channel memory, but like second stick on the same channel basically. So now there is actually a very, very easy like a clue over here. There is like a little cheat sheet that you can see, dim 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then it shows you which one should you install first. But basically the guide is you start from outside the processor, first one here, and then every other, and then this one over here. So you start from here, this one, and then that one. So what you want to do is open those sockets so they only open from the front or from the top. Sorry, wrong one, this one, that one. And we're going to take our RAM, make sure they don't drop on your motherboard somewhere. So we have 128 gigabytes of RAM, and this is quite a good RAM as well. And you know, I know there's shortage of stuff in the world at the moment. This is very, very affordable RAM actually. So this is by Team Group. This is 32 megahertz. Sorry, 3200 megahertz RAM, which is like the maximum supported by the CPU. And it is CL16. It's very hard to find CL16 memory with like that capacity. So what we're going to be doing is lining these up. Now there is like a little gap in the tooth in the RAM over here. So make sure that that gap basically goes inside that as well, so these line up. So what you do is you put this in. Usually like the front of the RAM is facing this way, not towards the back of the motherboard, but towards the front of the motherboard. So what you do is just use that, and then use your 2 fingers, like I usually use thumbs, and press down quite hard until you hear click. Boom, now it's installed. Let's move on to the next one and repeat this process. Just be aware that on the other side of the CPU, the front of the like RAM faces that way, not the same way. So the gap of the tooth is like kind of on the other side. Boom, RAM is installed. Let's move on to the M.2 drives. As you can see, there's 2 over here. Both of them are Gen 4 over here. I think they're both like from the CPU as well. So you take a screwdriver, if you have one of those iFixit kits, undo this heat spreader. I'm gonna take it off. And then, as you can see over here underneath, there is a little standoff. So if you want to check if your M.2 SSD is the same height or the same size for this standoff, because the standoff can be moved. So what you do is this. We're going to take this out. If you can, don't touch like the top of this as much as you can, because this is like a little heat sink or tiny little piece of copper in the top, so that spreads the heat as well, and underneath here as well. So hold it from the sides. What you'll do is you put it like on top of this socket, and then you'll see that standoff is in the right place, as you can see over here. So what you want to do is now take hold of the M.2 drive, M.2 SSD, and then there's like a little socket on the side. So what you want to do is just line it up and then push it in. And then once it's in, it's gonna like keep pushing up a little bit. And that's completely fine. Get those M.2, there's tiny little screws that we got out from the motherboard box. I'm gonna empty them inside over here. We only need 2. And then take one of those small screws, put it on your screwdriver, push this M.2 down onto the standoff, and then screw it in, boom. Screw it until it's like tight. And now that's it. Now take back this heat spreader as we had before. Underneath on the other side, this is called a thermal pad. So basically you're gonna peel this off, and this pad is just gonna take the heat or tries to spread it from the SSD onto this little piece of metal. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna push it on the other side, line it up with a screw on one side, and then on the other side, we're gonna take the screw that we took out from there. You can touch this now on the top, that's no problem. Then you're just gonna screw it in on this side. Screw it with confidence. Hashtag The Verge. And then boom, now you are done. While we are here, might as well just peel all this plastic off from this here as well. We don't want to come back to it later. It's easier to do it now. So we're just going to pull this off, peel this off, boom. So now let's move on to the second M.2, which is underneath over here. Undo the screw and repeat the process exactly the same as on the first one. But now on this second one, you now need to move the M.2 or like this standoff over here, because for the second drive we're using this cheaper drive, Western Digital 2 terabyte drive. It's not as fast as the first one, but we're still getting like 2.6 gigabytes per second, so 2,600 megabytes per second speeds. Now the same screw that is holding the heat spreader is holding the standoff as well. We want to move this standoff over here, so just put the screw in and then you can unscrew it. And then put it somewhere safe, because you might need it later. Peel this off from the heat spreader or the thermal pad. This is just gonna keep in there. Line up the screw over there. Boom. Over here. And screw it back in. Okay, and 2 of these M.2s are installed. In this motherboard, it doesn't matter which you're gonna go and put it to where, because they're both very, very fast or the same speed slots, so you don't need to worry about that. And now comes the point where we're going to be installing the CPU cooler. In our case, we are using this, the Cooler Master Threadripper. And this is the cooler that's actually advertised on AMD website as like the cooler that you should pair with these CPUs. So on the top of the box, we have some instructions. Keep them because they're very important. You're definitely gonna need them. Then the top panel comes off. You can slide it out like that. Okay. So if you bend these on the side, we're gonna get the CPU cooler out like that. It comes out. The bottom is protected, so we can just lay it down on there. And there's like a little secret compartment. So if you open it over there, we have a little USB cable inside like the side over here that we actually do need. The good thing is that the thermal paste on this CPU is cooler is already installed. So if you don't have any thermal paste, we can just use this one that's already included, which seems pretty fine. If you can, keep that there. If you see that there's lots of bits on your CPU cooler over there, then you know, you can just clean it up and then get some thermal paste and put it there. Let me check mine. Yes. So let's get like really close up over here. I'm not sure if you can see, there's like few bits of dust and stuff in there. Now it shouldn't really matter, but because I can and I have thermal paste over here, I'm gonna clean it up and I'm gonna do it again. If you want to do the removal of this, this is how you do it. You take like a piece of toilet roll and then you just start wiping this off. Yeah, it's best if you wipe this off. It's stayed there for quite a while. It looks a little bit dry. We're gonna get better thermal performance if we do it again. So if you have alcohol or something like that, just use that, but I'm just gonna like literally polish it and clean it with a toilet paper. Okay, and now I can see that there's really nothing left. Let's put some thermal paste on this CPU. Now, if you don't have one already, I have this NIC thermal paste, and I like this one because it doesn't conduct electricity, which means that even if some of this gets on the motherboard, it doesn't do anything, because some of the thermal paste is conducting electricity, which means that, you know, you can short some of the parts of your motherboard. So you can use this one or get one of those that I've left in the description below. I'm gonna open this up. This is how you're gonna apply the thermal paste on Threadripper systems. We're gonna do an X. We're gonna do X this way, and then you're gonna put a blob on each section as well. Don't worry about putting too much on it, because honestly, too little is worse than too much. Now, once you've applied the thermal paste or touched it with your hand, make sure that you don't have any of it like on your fingers, because it just leaves residue all over your PC parts and it's quite hard to get out. But now, this is your CPU cooler, okay? Make sure that it is the right way around. This is the top of the motherboard, and this would line up like this. There is 4 screws, like 2 on the top and then 2 on the bottom, like sockets. So basically now, what you do is you line up this. So just have a look how these are gonna be lining up there. Okay. Now these screws have been lined up. So now there's an order which you need to do these top screws, because these top screws are, you're gonna screw this cooler into the socket. It's best if you use a bit of a stronger screwdriver now. If you have something like that, that would be better. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Use your screwdriver. We're gonna do a little bit. 1, make sure it bites. Don't go all the way. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna go back to here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, that's done. 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 And done. Okay, so the reason we're actually using this order to put it down, so that all of this like CPU cooler goes down equally, not like a little bit on this angle, because then it just pushes the thermal paste out one way or the other way. So you want to kind of get it down equally like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, do a little bit of here, there, and keep going around until all of these screws are down. You know once they're down, because they go like hard and you can't screw it anymore. So now there's 2 cables that are coming out from this CPU cooler. So one of these that has 4 pin on this, and it's like a braided cable. What we're going to be doing with this one is you want to push this through like from underneath here, and then pull it back up onto this side. There we go, because we're going to need to be plugging it in over there. So you pull this in from this side, and then now from the top of the motherboard over here on this corner on this side, it says CPU fan over here. And you're just gonna plug this in. Look, on one side there's like little guides, and then it goes in. You just line up these, push it in, and that's it. Now the rest of the cable you can literally just hide underneath there, or push like underneath the cooler if you can. So we're gonna just, okay, you can get it like through this part over here, and then push the rest of it just underneath your CPU. Just let it there. So now it's all like cleaned up. Now there's this other cable that comes in from here, and I want to put these underneath these M.2, because you can plug them on that side, and then this cable is going to nicely like be managed on this side, because they're going to go to the power supply. You can like push them up like from this side as well. But now this little USB cable that was in this box as well, there's like a little slot on this side actually. I don't know if you knew this, but if you open this up, boom. Then now on this side over here, if you pull this off, take this rubber bit off, and then this cable We're actually gonna have to put this in there. So that just goes in there. Make sure it goes the right way. Boom. Push that in. And then now I want this cable to go underneath those M.2 drives over here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be opening up these M.2 drives on this side. I know it's a little bit awkward. And then we're gonna get this through. Take this side off as well. Actually, on that one, we can just undo one screw and then put the cable underneath and then screw it back down. Boom. And then on this side, you might have been able to do the same, but I'm gonna screw that back down. Basically, the reason for doing this is so that the cable would run underneath those drives. Tighten it back down. Second screw. In there. So now this cable basically from there is going underneath those SSDs over there, and then it's like a little bit managed. It's like nice, right? So this is basically where the RGB of this is controlled. So you want to plug this in on the bottom of the motherboard over here. So underneath this, literally directly underneath the M.2 over here, it says a J USB. And if you look over here, there is one pin on this cable that is, I'll show you on this side, that's blocked over here. Can you see this one over there is blocked? So that one goes in there where it's empty, okay? So make sure you plug it in the right way, or this J or the USB sign is just facing upwards. So we're just gonna plug it in there, boom. And then now the rest of the cable, we're just gonna later plug underneath into the case. So we're just gonna leave it there like that. And then keep this one handy on the top over here. The motherboard is ready to go in the case. So to prepare the case, we're gonna undo these screws in the back panel. Undo these, both sides in the back. And this top one over here. So there's 4 thumb screws. Put them underneath your iFixit gate. And then you're gonna basically pull them out like from, push them out, and then it comes out. Take this panel and put it somewhere safe on the side. The same on this back panel. Pull it out from this side. Put it on the back side here. Now, if you look over here on this side, is a 3 hardware trays over there. So we're gonna take one of those out because there's the case accessories over here. So first of all, we're gonna be installing this IO shield in the back over there. Remember that came on the motherboard case. So now, so how this goes in, you take it from the inside, move this cable out of the way for now, and then push it in from the back side over here. Okay, so basically make sure that those like circle holes are on the bottom side over here, and these 2 rectangular holes are on the top side. So basically, if the text is the right way, is that this is the top of the case, just remember, if it goes there, then you can put it in. So now, just literally pop and push it in. Okay, when it pops in, that's it. We can take the top panel over here off as well. Look, there's a little hole, like a little knob on here. Press that, boom, and then this top one comes off as well. So we'll leave this one off as well, so we have a little bit more access to here if we needed to. As you can see over here, on this case, there's standoffs here, 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 there, 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 and there, and there. There's 9 standoffs. One of this middle one is a nubbin, so there's no screw that's gonna go in there. But what we're gonna do is, you can hold it from this. Basically, the motherboard's gonna go in this way, and I know that these like standoffs are already lined up because on the motherboard there's the same ones on here, like two closer on this side and then there. So what we want to do is hold on like from the CPU cooler, Okay, gently lower it down in there. Then try to go gently towards the I/O shield. And now this is very important how you're gonna get this in over here. If Aaron can get a close-up onto here. Because all of these like little guides, you don't want to bend any of them. So what you want to do is go gently towards like it down. And then let's have a look that we didn't bend any of them and they're all good. Yes, okay. Sometimes what happens with one of these I/O like guides on the back happens is they bend inside the USB port and then you can't use the USB port. Happened to me many times. So basically now, once it's in, I'm just gonna press on the I/O so that we can get it in here. So now this motherboard is standing on those standoffs. What we want to do is just screw it in. So we're going to open up this box of accessories over here. What we're going to get inside is absolutely tons of stuff. So what we want to do is we just want to get into and get some screws out. Let me see which ones are the right screws. So now if you don't know which screws are the right screws, then basically what you can do is just take one of those screws out from the screw box and then try if it bites inside the motherboard hole. So I'm gonna go in here, line it up over there, and then I'm just gonna see if it bites and screws in. Yep, so these are the right ones. So they are the ones that look like the most normal screws. There's the one that have a massive head on them, and then one that have like even bigger head. So they're the smallest screws in the box. These are the ones for the motherboard, and we need 8 of those screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Okay, and what you do now is just screw it in on the motherboard. The motherboard screw holes, there is them all over the place. There's one underneath this Threadripper over there, and you don't need to screw that one in because there actually isn't the screw hole. So there's 8 altogether. Don't screw them in all the way because sometimes some of the holes don't line up. So just get the screw going and then don't screw it in all the way. And then once every single screw is biting in the hole, then you can screw them all the way in. Okay, the motherboard is in. What we're gonna do next is this back fan over here, as you can see. What we're going to do with this back fan is from the top, we're going to move it as down as possible because I want it to take directly the air that comes from this like heat sink of a CPU cooler over here, and then I want it to push down. So basically we're going to just undo these screws. Just a tiny little bit. And then push it all the way to the bottom side and then tighten them back up again. Let's go to this other side. So there's a few cables that come from the case. I'm gonna undo this over here. Okay. Then these come, we're gonna have to undo this part as well because we need this USB-C front header out as well. Just get that cable out. So we need that cable to come out from there. What we're going to do actually is we're going to bend this cable a little bit, and then we're going to put this through from the top over there. For now, I'll come back and do the cable management on this side later. I'll show you where to push things through. So now this cable with the blue end, we're going to be throwing in through this hole that's underneath just over there. Just push it through to there onto the other side. And we'll leave it there for now. And there's one cable with lots of like colored interesting wires over here. That's called HD audio, and that goes through on the very back underneath there. So just push it through on the back over there. All of these little last cables that were left, like that says HD LED and power LED plus minus and reset SW and power SW, power switch, reset switch. We're going to be putting those through from this lower port here in the middle as well. That's just underneath here. Should push them there because some of these cables aren't as long as I expected. So just push them through on the other side there as well. Let's plug loads of these cables in now then. First of all, I'm gonna start with this this little, loads of those little cables that said like power LED and reset switch and HD LED as well. And then if you take out the instructions, then you can see that there is page 27 over here. We're going to be looking for a port called JFB1 or JFB2. And then look, it's just located underneath over there, okay? And there is 10 pins over there, and the top right pin over here is empty. Number 10 pin is empty. And if you're wondering like where should you plug them in, these are clearly labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So lower numbers on the bottom and higher on the top. And then this guide over here shows you which one to plug them in. So I'm just gonna plug them in. But if you just keep an eye on these, HD LED plus and minus go 1 to 3, and reset switch 5 and 7, power switch 6 and 8, power LED 2 and 4. Okay, these switches are in. Now what we want to do next is on the bottom on this side, we have the HD audio, and that's going to go in the very corner of the motherboard over there. The port is called JAUD1. It goes on the bottom over there. As you can see on this over here, there is one pin missing as well, or one pin is like dead or filled up. So make sure that that pin goes in the same place over there where there isn't any pin. My cable just needed a little bit force to go in. Make sure that your pins line up and then push it in. So next up we have the USB 3 header, which is this blue pin, and that is literally underneath the chipset fan over there as well. There's this one over here, and as you can see, there's a little guide or little notch in the middle of there. Make sure that that goes from the top that we have over there, and then push this in. Now with this connector, it's very important that you have the pins aligned perfectly, and as you can see, there's one dead pin over here, there's one pin missing on the motherboard, so you can easily line it up that way as well. Make sure that your pin are lining into the holes before you apply force and push it in, because I have bent one pin before when doing that, so just be careful when you do that. Then there's one more cable like on the side over here that we push through. This is the front USB-C panel and connector. Then this goes next to this 24 pin, this massive connector over here. Just over here there's this connector, so plug that one in. So while we are on this side, this back fan cable over here, we're going to be pushing it through like from the top over there, from this top hole inside there. You're gonna see where my finger goes through over there, so just use that hole over there, push it through on the other side. Pull your cables now tight again from this side, so all the excess would come in the back of the case, not on the front of the case. So now this back cable fan that we plugged in, so because it's quite a short cable, what we want to do with this one is I'm going to plug it in into this little hub over here, and there's 3 pins on the left side and then right pins on the right side. We're going to be plugging it in on this left side over here. Boom. We're going to use the top port over there. So I'm going to take this second hard drive tray out as well, just to make the cable management a little bit more easier for me. These 2 cables over here, the front 2 fans, what we need to do with them is we're going to be running them from here, boom, in the back of the case to this hub over here, and both of these are 3 pin, so we're going to be plugging them here on the fan 6, boom and boom. So these will be adjusted exactly the same, so they're like identical input. And then the back fan over there as well, we're going to be adjusting it and putting it over here. Just have to do it all together. And then this PWM connector cable over here, we're going to be pulling this up and then pushing it through on the other side. Which is a little bit unfortunate that we can't just plug them straight into the motherboard, which I would prefer to do, so I can control them all separately, but just because the cables won't reach, because all the connectors on the motherboard are on the bottom over here, can't do that. So we all plug them into this kind of fan hub, and then they'll all be controlled identically the same. And then this control cable here, let me turn it on the other side. This goes on the top over there. There is a pump fan over there. So we're just gonna be plugging that in over there. And then there we go. So what we're going to do now next is we're going to be installing our graphics card and other peripherals. Because on this case, it doesn't actually matter which PCIe slot we're going to be using, because they're all PCIe 4.0 and there's lots of PCIe lanes over here. I'm not sure we can use the first slot. We're going to be checking that out if we can. Let's open our graphics card over here. This is RTX 3070 from MSI. There is already a SAG bracket that comes with this graphics card, which is pretty cool. We're going to be using that. And then our beloved graphics card. So we're going to be using the second PCIe 4.0 slot over there, and the graphics card goes over there like that. Then maybe we can install the Wi-Fi card that we have, or the 10 gig Ethernet card. Now on the back of this motherboard, we're going to be taking out the second slot in the back over there. So undo this screw. Okay. And then take this cover off. Put these on the side. We're going to be taking this 10 gigabit Ethernet or LAN port. We'll just pull this off over there. Then we're going to be slotting like that. So that 10 gig LAN will stay there. Then we're going to be taking the graphics card, which is going to be taking our 4th and 5th slot. So take out the 4th and 5th slot. The cool thing about this LAN card that we just put in is you don't have any power or anything with this. You don't need to attach any more cables to that. It literally just plugs in, and then there we go. Take the card, and then on the card on this slot, look, there's a little plastic cover. I'm just going to take this off, and then we're going to be slotting that inside over here. So you push it in the back, open up the socket. So we're going to be putting this inside this socket over here. So you just slide it in slightly in the back over there. Make sure that they all go into the holes on there. Then once it's in, you push, and then we're in. And then screw in the screws in the back of this over here. If you feel like these screws are not aligning, it's fine to like bend it a little bit back to make it align over there, because it's just some of the cases and graphics card, it feels like, oh, those screws aren't aligning, but it's completely fine. You just kind of tighten this back up. And then while we're here, we have our Wi-Fi adapter over here as well. So take it out from the box, and we have this black card. That's pretty cool. Everything is black, matte black. So that's going to go in the very bottom slot over there. So what we're going to do is take the very bottom slot off, and then this Wi-Fi card is going to go into the bottom slot. I know the space isn't the best over there, but it can go easily. Okay, perfect. And then, you know, just screw all the screws in that you just undid. Put the screws back, make sure that all these cards that we just plugged in are plugged in. And that's pretty simple. We're not going to be using the SAG bracket because I don't think we're going to be needed. It's not that heavy card over here. So let's take out this power supply shroud over here. So from the back of the case, from this back of the case, this came out. And we're going to be putting in our power supply. So plug it off and then turn this one off. So we're going to be plugging in this shroud in first. So, you know, it came out like that. Okay, and then the 4 screws that were on the motherboard, the same screws are going to go in on the back of this. So use those screws. Okay, so this will be going in like that. And just so you know, like, I'm going to be installing it so that the power supply fan is from the top, on the top. So it's going to be taking the air within the case and then pushing it out, and then comes out that way. Because I don't like this thing about these power supplies. So if you have it that way, what happens is you're going to have seen like this massive sticker inside the case over there, which I don't like. Now, if you remember where your power supply case is, basically what you want to do there is get a few cables out this box and we're gonna be needing a few cables. So there's cable that says CPU on. We need one of those, two CPU cables. Then we're gonna be needing one that has SATA on. So basically this, if you look closer over here, this is what a SATA power cable is called over here. And then on the other side, there is a 6-pin power cable. We need one of those. Then we're gonna need one of those 24-pin cables that goes for the motherboard. It says type 4 on this side, type 4. Use one of those. And then for the graphics card, we're gonna need PCIe cables. So there's cables that says PCIe on them. So we need one of those and then two of those. And that is all we need for now. On one side, there's like 2 cables, and on one side, there's one 24-pin. So the one that's two sides that says type 4 on them as well. So that goes on the power supply here. And you can't really go wrong because there's only one place where it can go. You just plug it in over there. Voila, like that. And next off, we're gonna be taking the CPU cables. The side that says CPU will go to the motherboard, but in our case, in our power supply extension cables, which we're gonna do in a moment. So I'll move these cables out of the way so you can see. And then on this side, that it doesn't say anything. Look, all of these that have 4 pins over here are for PCIe and CPU. So I'm just gonna start to occupy them from underneath over there. And then we're gonna take another CPU cable. I'm gonna be putting it over there. Then we take one PCIe cable, not the one that says PCIe on over here, because the PCIe side goes to the graphics card, the other side goes to the motherboard. So we'll plug that in, and then we'll take the other one, exactly the same. And the last one is this SATA cable. There's a 6-pin over here, and then that 6-pin goes over here. Just pick whichever one you want, plug it there. Now, before we're gonna be putting this in, I'm gonna move this on the side a little bit. We're gonna be pulling out our power supply extension cables, or PSU extension cables. And our PSU extension cables are yellow, okay? So we have one 24-pin over here, as you can see. Very nice. And then this one has also one CPU and then 2 GPU, okay? And then on the other one, we're gonna have to take out only one CPU cable. So this one, because our CPU has 2, so we're gonna be using 2 CPU cables and then 2 GPU cables, okay? So if you don't know which one of these is CPU cables and which one of these is CPU cables, as you can see, the GPU cable is 6 plus 2. Over here, can you see? This is 6 plus 2. And then the CPU cable is 4 plus 4. They kind of like split in half from the middle. Okay, and these like combs have already been applied. So now let's start plugging in cables. So we're gonna start with the 24-pin, which goes on the side of the motherboard over here. And it can only go in one way. So make sure it's all lined up. We're gonna push that in and then put that on the other side. Boom, I like how it goes. So just play around with the comb however you want it. So I think I'm gonna like quite a clean look over here. So I'm gonna get both of those combs. Then let's take our CPU cables. They are gonna be going boom, and then find the other 4 plus 4. That goes as well. You definitely need both of those cables for this processor, because this processor, the TDP, is 280 watts. And then now for the GPU, you do exactly the same. The sides that have like 6 plus 4, you're gonna plug into a GPU. You can't really put it the other way because it only goes one way. So these 2 cables are gonna go down and like into the bottom bit. That's very good. And then these CPU cables, you're gonna be pushing through like this bottom hole here where my finger is. So I'm gonna do it standing up because it's easier. We move on to this side. This is where we're going to be doing a little bit of cable management and stuff. Let's put the power supply in. So basically how you do that is you just literally push all those cables through. What you want to do is push it in and then screw it in as well. Now it's time to do cable management, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna be putting this top one back over here. One last thing. Guess what's inside here? One hard drive. Oh, is that a small hard drive? It is 18 terabyte hard drive. So if you're wondering how you can plug that one in, is basically you take one of those bottom ones over here, and that goes in there, and then the hard drive plugs in into the side like that. And for that now, we're going to be using some of these over here. So inside the case, there was some rubber. So we're going to be using 1, 2, 3, 4. These rubbers. Put those rubbers all on the case on these bottom holes over here, like that. So basically we can slide it in over there and then push it on the bottom. These are just going to be like anti-vibration because these hard drives are going to spin and they're going to be probably the loudest part of this. So we're just going to be plugging that in there. Then make sure that your hard drive is facing the right way. So basically it goes in that way. And then this, like, not the front of the hard drive, but the back of it goes towards this over here. So I'm just gonna slide it in over there like that. And then you can see on the side, the screw holes start to line up. And when they line up, you can screw them in with these funny screws over here. 4 screws, okay. So, and then use the screwdriver to kind of tighten them up. Tighten them like all the way, as much as they can. Okay, you can put that last hard drive tray back over there as well. Let's do some of this cable management here first, before we're gonna push these in. So now from the motherboard box as well, take out one of the SATA cables. There was 2, remember? One of them has an L bracket and then one of them doesn't. I'm going to use the one that doesn't have the L bracket because that's better. So you're going to be pushing it through from this side, and literally behind the graphics card port there is SATA ports, and there's 8 SATA ports on here. So just plug it into whichever one you want. There is L, so this can go both ways, so it doesn't really matter like which port you're going to be using. There we go. I recommend you put it literally behind the graphics card so you can't see the cable from the other side. There's lots of choices available there. It doesn't matter which one you plug it into. And then now this one's going to go into there. So before we're going to be doing that, let's plug all the right cables in now then. So this big 24 pin and then this yellow 24 pin, they need to go together. Boom. Then we have 2 CPU cables. Okay, what you want to do with them is make sure that these are the cables that can go all the way to this right side over here. And then both of them that says CPU on them, you want to plug them into these yellow cables that come out from the corner over there. And 2, they only go in one way. So make sure that that clip goes on all the way and they will go over there. Then we have these PCIe cables, as you can see over there. And then I recommend you use 2 separate cables, because you think, oh, why shall I put like 2 cables? Because I can put one cable to like both, because one cable splits into 2. And it's because only one cable, there is a power wattage limit per cable, which is I think 150 watts. And then there's 2, but I know this graphics card pulls 300 watts or more. So basically we want to use at least 2 cables, just so that if the graphics card peaks, we're not going to be like, you know, not shorting something out, but like capping something out. So just plug in the PCIe, not the like last end, but then the first end into these over there. 1, and then the second one. Gonna be 2. Then the last over here is the SATA cable, and for this SATA cable we're going to be actually plugging in only one over here. There was one SATA cable extension or splitter that came from the motherboard, the case box, so we're going to be plugging in that to one of those SATA cables over here, and then those 3 will go, well, the top one is going to go into this port that came from the CPU. So the CPU goes into there, and then the middle one is going to go into this fan header one, and then the lower one is going to go into this this hard drive that we're going to be putting over there. But I'm going to do a little bit of cable management. We're going to speed that up, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to be, where I'm going to plug in the last thing. So a little time lapse how we do the time management, cable management. There's lots of zip ties that came with it, or these these like cable ties, or one of these. So use a lot of these ports that are on the case, like over here for example. There's a lot of these hooks that come out from the port that you can slot in cables and do that. So I recommend you do a lot of that. Okay, just wanted to give you a little update on the actual cable management, because it might have been a little bit confusing on the video. So from the power supply, the SATA cable that comes in, as you can see, this one over here is plugged into that. There was like a 3 splitter that comes from the case that goes into all of these like hard drive pays. So I'm using that cable there to connect these hard drives into. So that hard drive over there is connected to this one, and the next one into the 3 has this fan hub power connected to that one, and then the very top one over here, as you can see, this one, that one has the CPU cooler like RGB power connected to that one. So then there's 3 SATAs over there. This one, CPU cooler, fan header, hard drive, and then the last one goes to the power supply SATA port, which is over there. Okay, as you can see, my friends, this is cable managed. There's going to be a little bit of a paint job later here as well. We're going to be painting some of these accessories in the back this yellow color, so stay tuned, subscribe if you want to see that. But now it's literally, we're going to be turning this PC on, and let's see how it's going to look. So I'm gonna do like one little last trick over here, is because these GPU cables are like actually going all over the place. So I've got one like zip tie over here. I'm literally just gonna zip tie them on the bottom over here into the bottom of this. Okay. So it's time to do a test run for this PC. So what you're going to do now is, once everything has been, plugged in, everything inside, take your power cable in here, plug it in the back. Okay. Then you're going to need a keyboard. So plug it in the back of the motherboard, anywhere you want, really. Just pick one of the top ports, and then take a mouse as well. You plug the mouse in to the top over there as well. And then the last thing is your monitor cable. So I've got a monitor over here. This is DisplayPort cable. If you've got HDMI, whatever you want, plug that in the back of the graphics card. Pick one of those safety ports off, plug that in, and then now plug in the power from the back thing on the motherboard. Nope. And then now comes the moment of truth. If I press this, it should all turn on. Now make sure that our CPU fan is plugged in over there. That's in over there. CPU power. Yes, so let's do 3, 2, 1. Yeah, nothing. here's the reason why the PC didn't turn on. It was because my front panel connectors were all plugged into the wrong place, and it's easy to make that mistake, so that's why I'm leaving you here, because even I'm making the mistakes. Okay, I'll show you what I've done. I had plugged in my front panel connectors into that port over there, which says USB on it, which obviously is wrong, but they should have been connected into this port over there, which, as you can see underneath there, is the JFP1, like the real port that you need to be plugged in. But this one over there is for the USB. And if you're wondering what is that port over there for, then that is for this over here. This one over here was our Wi-Fi adapter, and as you can see, I didn't realize that there is actually a little port on the side over here, and that cable that came from the Wi-Fi box, it's inside the Wi-Fi box, USB cable, needs to be connected into that USB over there. So let's do that now. As you can see now, when the cables have been plugged in properly, the front panel button works. Okay, the PC is gonna do its thing. It's gonna figure out if there's everything's plugged in and everything's working. So right now you can see some of these. Oh, there we go. We've got something on the screen over here. We have a Ryzen Threadripper processor. We're gonna run F1 for setup. Okay, so now this F1 is gonna take us to BIOS. And what can we see on this BIOS? Let's see that everything is plugged in, what we can see. So on the motherboard here on the top, we can see TRX 40 motherboard, CPU, Threadripper 3960X, 24 core processor. Poof, ridiculous, right? We have the DDR speed right now, 2400 megahertz. If we put this XMP on, then it's going to run at 3200, but we're going to leave it for that for now until we install Windows and stuff like that. We're going to go to memory, see how much is on here. M.2 222. We can see all 32 gigabytes are over here. Let's see storage. We can see some storage over here. So SATA port 5, this one over here is where we plugged in our hard drive on the back over there. And then we can see Sabre and Rocket is on the top, M.2, and then on the bottom one we have a WD over there, which is cool. Look, 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, and then 18 terabytes over there. And then looks like we have everything working. We have CPU fan and everything. So it looks like our PC is working. So now what you want to do is install Windows and all the drivers and things like that. Now, if you don't know how to do that, I've got a separate video that you can check out on my channel, but I'm not going to do it again because it's essentially the same on every single PC. Like, even though the components vary, it is the same on every single PC. But right now we can see everything is plugged in correctly, everything is working, everything is detected. Now it's just the software configuration, fan tuning, and then turning it all that on, all the drivers and softwares and things like that. If you don't know how to do that, like I said before, go check out that video on my channel or link on the corner of the video over there. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. If you have any other questions, comment below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you enjoy content like this and more videos like that. But this is the best bang for buck Threadripper build over here. Remember, if you want to pick out any of these parts, the links for these are in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys for watching. Adios. Bye bye.